right, me salon famodem muna cabo again. Of course, we don't say time they come very close to the next presidential and parliamentary elections in Sierra Leone. We get for happen at least by next year, according to the National Electoral Commission. And so this is not the time where it can come where Sierra Leoneans, the future of the country, then they place them squarely in our hand. And when I not say as a democracy in a country or as a democratic country, political parties in the country, they advocate to una for let una go elect them for take the reins of governance in the country. And so plenty time we don't say, oh, we country not to go before, oh, we country they be. But when it comes to that critical decision making, we're gonna make the country able for go before that decision they at the hands of una, the Sierra Leonean people. And so now that make it very important when anytime then they don't come, we for put aside all emotions, we for put aside all sentiments, because now critical decision making time that one day, for let we able for choose the political party we go able for move this country go before. So today what would they do now? Would they do a kind of an assessment of the same way the SLPP government they kind of power in 2018 before they take over the reins of governance in 2018. Waiting be the condition of the country Sierra Leone, waiting be the condition of the country, waiting will be they go through then time and day, and which kind of government where the All People's Congress will be led by the former President Ernest Bai Koroma, which kind of government will hand over to His Excellency retired Brigadier-General Julius Maada Bio of the Sierra Leone People's Party. Now that assessment we can do today, because we don't hear plenty where people that they complain, oh, how this government not they do well, how that government not they do well. But we like for always go after the issues, we like for go after the fact. So now that's what they do now so today. So for let we do that one day, we get we own brother we now a native of Kailahun district, and we will do this obviously because we know say Kailahun a critical district that one in Sierra Leone. Now there's for the past several elections we don't get now the final results can come out where we say that result they come in, then they announce without now the president of the country. And so one of them Pekin, when a native of that district there, now in what they talk to today, we now possibly highly involved in political business in the country. And so I will take you to that person now. We now no other person but we own brother Mr. Ansumana Kakpindi Vandi, who can commonly called as AKV. Hello, brother Ansumana. How you do, sir?
Oh, Mr. Sherix, thank you very much. I do fine. Thank you. Today, America, but do not forget we country in Salon. So I thank you for the invite. I greet the people in Salon. Especially Lawa Yeho, Jiabu, Kenawa, Agaba Opema, mine Alpha Dollar, Agabuma, Dolmine, Kalando, Agabuma Biabema. And I greet all of the people of Sierra Leone. And my heart goes out to those who are going to the Hajj, all the pilgrims who are going to the Hajj. May Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take you all safely and bring you back to our country safely.
Yes, thank you very much, brother Ansumana Vandi, brother AKV. I mean, for the purpose of this interview, I get for the call you AKV. So AKV,
no problem.
Plenty of people and they will not sabi you. I want for me you take this time for introduce yourself to people them so they go know who are you. Introduce yourself.
Well, Nina Ansumana Kakpindi Vandi, Kamo Kenawa, Kailahun Banyawalu especially. I start my school as RC Primary School, Small Boy Chiefdom na Blama. At that time, Madam Mamawa Benya, the Paramount Chief. And then from RC Primary School, I go to RC Methodist, RC Secondary Primary School in Kailahun in Center. And then I sat to the selective entrance exams back in the 70s. I went to Methodist Secondary School. And then after that, 1977 come, and we therefore left the country into exile. And then I finished the rest of my education in Liberia and I came to the States. I attended Jesuit University in Philadelphia, Drexel University in Philadelphia as well. I'm a member of SLPP, but also a citizen of the Republic of Sierra Leone. And that is the most important description anybody can get. And so before we even talk about politics, we talk about citizenship, because citizenship is all that brings us together in one boat. So when that boat capsizes, we all capsize. If that boat floats, we all float. So our responsibility as citizens to make sure the boat where we cross along, therefore float. So, Paramik Adea. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. Of course, we don't get a sense of an idea. Just like I don't tell with people that you're a native of Kailahun, and then you don't show all which you don't go through, then you can end on one of the best universities in United States. I think saying at the 5th best, Drexel University. I like for always highlight that. So AKV, by your own memory, waiting na the state of the country at the time where Ernest Bai Koroma of the APC handed power over to His Excellency retired Brigadier-General Dr. Julius Maada Bio in 2018. How will country be look like at that time where Maada Bio take over the mantle of leadership in the country? Waiting are you memory of that?
Well, first of all, let me go back to the beginning. This APC, SLPP, most people in the country don't understand what APC don't do or SLPP don't do for so long. So I will try to go back to the beginning when our leaders went to London to ask the British to grant us independence. So at that point, we went for independence. Sir Milton and his delegation of the SLPP were asking the British to give us independence. On the other hand, there was Checker Stevens and his APC who said they didn't want independence. They wanted elections now. So their idea was you could have elections even if you are colonized. And Sir Milton said, no, we cannot be colonized and have an election and we pretend that we are free. So in any case, history tells us that the SLPP succeeded in bringing about independence. And so we want that history to be known to the people of Sierra Leone. Every Salon person to understand that history. That's the fundamental difference between the APC and the SLPP. But we need the APC as a country of values, of democracy, especially after all the things the country don't go through the last maybe 23 years or so, after the Civil War. We need strong political parties, strong political institutions. And so we fast forward to 2018. Just before 2018 elections, there was this rumor that President Koroma wanted to extend his term. I still have the video where he bragged that if I want to extend my time, nobody will stop me. And people clap for him. They clap for him. It was funny then, but it was serious. But then what has been happening 2018 or before 2018? 2014, especially Ebola came to Salon from Guinea. That Ebola, the first victim in Salon, passed through Kailahun. And I happened to go to Kailahun and actually see where the victims of the Ebola virus outbreak were buried in Kailahun, where they used to actually cremate the bodies. Actually went there and saw the place. You still smell the stench of flesh when you go there. President Koroma did not take Ebola seriously. Now, Ebola was not a global pandemic like COVID-19. Ebola affected Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. It was an epidemic. But because President Koroma did not take that virus seriously, within the space of 4 months, Ebola went through the country until people started dying in droves.
Mm-hmm.
By the time he realized what was happening, it was late. A lot of people died. Now, contrast that to what President Bio, and let me tell you this,
Mm-hmm.
I've never met Maada Bio, never. I've never met him in person. I just know that he's the president of Sierra Leone. I've never met him in person. I don't know him in person. But it is the difference in leadership that we're looking at. Now, is Maada Bio a perfect person? No. Maada Bio is not perfect. Has he made some mistakes? Yes, he has made some mistakes. But can you compare the leadership of Bai Koroma and the leadership of Maada Bio? I don't think so. I don't really think so. In terms of patriotism, loving your country, loving your people, taking leadership initiatives for your people during difficult circumstances, I don't think you can compare Maada Bio to Bai Koroma or anybody in the APC right now to Maada Bio. But anyway, so by 2018, we had Ebola, and then we had the mudslide. The country was going down in a free fall. The international community had lost hope or trust in the country. International partners were not willing to give money to the country because of the massive corruption that was taking place. Remember, President Koroma came in as an insurance person and said he was going to run the country as a business. Now, we all know that you cannot run a country as a business. To run a country, you have to think about your people. In business, you think about profit. So President Koroma and his APC thought about profit, and that's how they ran the country. So by the time we got to 2018, before the elections, the country was almost bankrupt, literally bankrupt. We were not getting money from even China. The Mama project that President Koroma was his biggest signature project, China was no longer willing to finance it because they were not sure they were going to get the money back. The management systems were poor. So that's where our country was in 2018.
Mm-hmm. So you did talk about the fact that now the time that one day we be to get the water crisis that the country people did not be get water for drink. There was a problem of electricity. There was Ebola. There was the time where the Auditor General reports come out with and say $14 million of the money where people then give we for manage the Ebola crisis. That money go into oblivion. These were all the times where then TRB they go on.
You remember the Ebola, that particular $14 million?
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It's good you don't pay some count, because at the end of the day, I still have the video again. President Koroma telling people, say, and we don't tell them to make them eat that Ebola money, that blood money.
Mm-hmm.
So the president of Sierra Leone
mm-hmm.
acknowledging that in your own people, in your own cabinet ministers, don't take the Ebola money. That was one of the most shameful moments in presidential leadership in the country. Now, look at what has happened in the COVID-19 crisis with President
Bio. So in fact, let's look at that. So $14 million of the Ebola money don't disappear. 4,000 Sierra Leoneans don't die as a result of the mismanagement of that Ebola crisis. So let's compare that one day to how the SLPP government managed the COVID-19. You know, let's compare them to them.
If you look at those two,
mm-hmm.
it's almost like day and night.
Right.
Because there's a report I was just reading from the World Bank
mm-hmm.
about how the SLPP government quickly moved to tackle this COVID-19. I think it was March
mm-hmm.
2020 when the first report came out. So learning from that Ebola failure, the failure of leadership during the Ebola crisis, the Ebola epidemic,
mm-hmm.
this government, this SLPP government, immediately began to put in contingencies, mitigation efforts to say, okay, so we learned from Ebola. One of the things that President Koroma did not do with this Ebola was to stop the travel of people from Kailahun, where the first, incident of Ebola was discovered, from going through the country into Freetown and into the north, into the northern districts. We didn't stop that. This time in 2020, March 2020, the SLPP government said, we are going to lock down the country.
Okay.
It was tough for the people. It was very tough.
So in essence, we are saying that between the two governments, the APC, the way they manage the Ebola crisis, according to you, they now close the borders, they now stop the travel of people from Guinea and Liberia into Sierra Leone as a way of managing stopping the disease from entering into the country, as compared to the lockdown, where the SLPP government did, just where they don't hear you say there was an outbreak of the COVID-19 in the country. And that's a good analysis. So, AKV, I want let we go further, let you go tell you don't highlight some of the problems which take place during the time the time of the APC. Now, let us compare that to waiting you feel say that the things that will don't happen from 2018, where Julius Maada Bio take over the reins of governance in the country, to now, waiting are some of the things that will don't happen in the country where make you feel say the SLPP government is way better in these 4 years than the 11 years of the APC.
Well, let's begin with the management of the country itself. So the moment the SLPP came to power, in 2019, the SLPP came up with a medium-term economic strategy. One of those things that they did was to create a robust revenue regime to raise money, revenue internally, instead of just depending on international partners. And so internal revenue generation went up. And then, of course, there was the anti-corruption, the commissions of inquiry, the anti-corruption commission. For the first time in almost 15 years, Sierra Leone now became recognized as a country that is actively fighting corruption. Are we there yet? No. Because corruption is a disease in our country. It is ingrained in the psyche of our people. So corruption, the fight against corruption is not going to be a 4-year project. Maybe it's not even going to be a 10-year project. Hey, America is 245 years almost a country. There's still corruption in this country. People are still being investigated for corruption. So Sierra Leone being a country that is just about 60 years or 62 years, we are fighting corruption that has existed from the beginning, for the very foundation of the country, that has permeated the entire thought process of the people. But we are going somewhere now. We are beginning to see that government is holding people accountable. Can we do better? Yes, we can do better. But at least the international community has begun to recognize the efforts of this SLPP government and the efforts of the Anti-Corruption Commission to make sure that people know that corruption is not going to be acceptable in the long run. That is why it is very important for us to build on the success that we have so far. Are we happy with what is happening? Not necessarily. I was one person who criticized the ACC because I did not want the ACC to just ask people to pay back money that they have stolen from the people. I wanted the ACC to prosecute them. But I guess President Bio and his leadership, they have the wisdom about maintaining the peace of the country, bringing about reconciliation and things like that. So I guess they settled for the fact that if we can take some money back from these people and let them be for the sake of the country, that's what we'll do. I'm okay with that. But at least we have started something and we are going somewhere. And the international community has recognized that. That's why this government is trusted now with international partnership from the IMF to the World Bank, international partnership with the Arab Development Bank. Money is once again flowing to the country for development projects.
Right. So, AKV, so based on what you don't say, what you feel say now the fundamental reason as to why when SLPP as a political party in power, they always do better than when the APC as a political party in power in Sierra Leone. Because this nine are the two different way with people and where they vote in the country need to understand. What to make any time with SLPP in power, they always perform better, but when the APC in power, they always perform poorly. Waiting to, according to you, what is the reason responsible for that?
Well, I told you about going back to the fight for independence.
Okay.
So everything has a foundation. Everything has a history. And some people will want us to neglect that history. But if you neglect the history, you're only to come back and repeat that same history. So between the SLPP and the APC, the fundamental reason why the SLPP is much more better than the APC in terms of governance is because of the way we see the country. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
Not only that we fought for independence when APC, Sheikh Stevens and APC were going against independence, but let's look at institutional capacity building. After so many years, our education system was in shambles under the APC. And then President Bio comes to power with the SLPP. His first objective, his first task was a free quality school education. Why is education such an important thing? I'll give you some data. The population of Sierra Leone is roughly around 8 million now. That's the projection, that between July and August this year, we are going to hit the 8 million mark. The median age in Sierra Leone is 19.7, if not less now. So the majority of people in our country are young people between 13 and 35. Those between 13 and 21, a lot of them have not had an opportunity to go to school. Girls were being taken out of school to be given in marriage at the ages of maybe 13 and 14 and 15. Young men were not able to go to school. So Maada Bio and the SLPP come in and say, now we are going to stop all of this. Even if a girl gets pregnant in Sierra Leone right now, that girl has an opportunity to go to school. This is something that has been acknowledged by the international community. Just last week, there was a UNESCO meeting in France, and Sierra Leone was featured prominently because of the education. This effort that Maada Bio and the SLPP have undertaken for the country. Because you cannot develop, one of the things I saw in the World Bank report was that there are very few people in Sierra Leone with the skill sets that companies are looking for to invest in our country. And so one of the partnerships that the government has made with the World Bank is to create programs for young people to develop those skill sets that companies will be looking for. Education is the key. The reason why, and I know you asked me certain questions, but the reason why most people don't understand what is going on in the country is a lack of education. Without education, our country is going nowhere. And at this point, the evidence is that only SLPP we can trust at this point with education.
Right. And I definitely agree with you, AKV, on that, because developing the human capacity of a country is so critical for the development of the country itself, because only when the people their capacity, they don't develop them, now it will make them understand even the value of what God don't endow the country with. Like Sierra Leone, we get so many minerals, we get so much natural resources, but we're only able for actually appreciate the value of them thing that way God don't give we past other countries them if we develop the human capacity of the country. So yeah, I definitely agree with you. So this takes me to the other question. that plenty people then they, even though then they see what in this government they do, you know, from the time where the government take over the reins of governance in 2018 onto this day when me and you two the talk, then they see what's in the happen at the country. But they are just not accepting that something better is happening to the country. Why you think, say, the people then, they refuse foresee the kind progress where they happen at the country since where Julius Maada Bio take over government?
Well, a couple of reasons. And the number one reason, again, is education. People are not educated enough to decipher, to determine what is fact and what is fiction, or what is propaganda, or what is news. They're not educated enough to understand that. Let's take, for example, the 2018 election was about the fourth time that the country was going through a democratic transition. When the SLPP lost the election in 2012 and contested the elections, the result of the elections. And everybody came and said, international observers came and said, elections was free and fair, go ahead and move on. SLPP accepted, Maada Bio especially, accepted the result of the elections and embraced President Bai Koroma coming in. And you see that when President Bai Koroma coming in, President Kabal left a huge budget surplus for President Koroma coming in. In other words, President Koroma had a soft ground to land on when he became president. That was not the case with the SLPP and Maada Bio. The country was nearly bankrupt. But beyond that, President Koroma refused to show leadership, statesmanship. I don't think up to now he has even congratulated Maada Bio on his election as president of Sierra Leone. I don't think he has done that. I don't think he went to the inauguration. And that in itself, it was a pullback from the progress we are trying to make sure that our country, our politics is a marketplace for competing ideas, that it is not personal. So, and up to now, let me tell you something also. Immediately after the election, the APC and its operatives embarked on a sabotage process to sabotage the government. I mean, for the first time in the history of our country, we are seeing an unprecedented development, investment in the energy sector. You cannot develop a country without factories. You cannot have factories without energy, electricity especially. And so the government is investing in electricity. You see the transmission lines coming from Liberia, from Ivory Coast into Liberia and into the countryside. You see the transmission lines. We see the substations. Time after time, people that have been identified as APC operatives will go and cut high tension cables worth thousands and thousands of dollars, taking the government projects back. Not once have we heard anybody in the APC condemning such behaviors or even dissociating themselves that the party is not of such behavior. We have not seen that. And so from President Koroma to the leadership of the APC, to their operatives, we see that in the last 4 years, they embarked on a sabotage engagement to just bring the country back. Because this is not a Maada Bio that they take back. Maada Bio not president until we not defeat him, not president. But at the end of the day, every time they cut one cable, they are taking the country back, and the APC leadership has refused. They have refused to condemn that behavior. So these are things that we look at when it comes to the leadership of the country. And the reason why most people don't understand what is going on is because our politics have been tribalized. And I can tell you this, it's not just the APC that is guilty of tribalizing the politics. Perhaps sometimes the SLPP itself is guilty of it. And so what we have to tell our own party is that Sierra Leone belongs to all of us. Whether you are Timini, you are Limba, you are Local, you are Mende, you are Shabro, Sierra Leone belongs to all of us. And we should work together as one people to make sure that this country survives, because this is not just our country. It is the country of our children also and their children. And so it is our responsibility as citizens to make sure that the country works and it survives. So these are things that people need to understand. But the only way people can begin to understand, to remove themselves from their regions and their political parties and their tribes, to put the country first, is through civic education. education is the key to taking us from where we are to where we're supposed to be as a country.
Right. So, so AKV, based on your own assessment, you feel saying that the sabotage of the opposition, All People's Congress, of the efforts of the SLPP government, you don't cite example as like whether they cut them, cables them. Of course, me say be in the country, I be they see whether they make them roads and people that they go on net, then they then stones them whether they put on the road for make the road, then they creep and then they go sell them. You know, so that was sabotage. But even though probably will not get any justification for saying that APC operatives then they do that one day. But based on what APC they do, when they come out for openly condemn them kind of activities, then they so people that if you say that APC operatives. But so let me ask you this question, AKV. You feel say SLPP party itself or the government itself don't do much for able for showcase waiting and they do when a developments in the country, like for really inform the Sierra Leonean people about waiting and they do. You think they have done a good job in doing that as well?
No. The simple answer is no. Mm-hmm. And that is why some of us are now stepping up on behalf of the party to make sure that we educate our people on what this government is doing. Mm-hmm. In short 4 years, what they have done so far. The education, the institutional capacity building, the marginal fight against corruption, the infrastructure developments, and most importantly, the credibility of our country in the international community. Because we are a member of the Committee of Nations, we cannot see ourselves as a country that people look down on because of our mismanagement systems. Because our leaders mismanage the systems. Our leaders mismanage the assistance that is given to our country. The capacity building loans that we take. Mm-hmm. We have to be a country where when we get out to international community, to development partners and tell them, hey, we need your assistance to do 1, 2, 3, that they can see that we are actually doing what we are telling them we are asking them to help us with. So that's the one thing. This government has done a lot in 4 years, and that's why we are making the case that the people should understand what is happening. This Maada Bio and his SLPP administration have laid the foundation for the next Sierra Leone. Mm-hmm. People are not feeling it right now. They are not seeing it right now. But I can promise you, 10, 15, 20 years from now, Sierra Leoneans in good faith will say, Maada Bio did this. If Maada Bio don't do this, this won't before happen. Because what is happening now is that he is laying the foundation for the next Sierra Leone. Say, for example, when you want to build a house, mm-hmm. as you're laying the foundation of the house, you are putting a wall up to wall height. You know, they go lay down at that house because the house is not ready yet. Mm-hmm. You see, the beauty of the house comes in when it is finished, and you really go in there and see, yeah, this is a beautiful house. That is exactly what is happening. But our people are hungry, they are struggling, and this struggle is not unique to just Sierra Leone. Ebola, the mismanagement of Ebola mm-hmm. took our economy back. And just as we're recovering from Ebola, we get COVID-19. Mm-hmm. And so that was a double whammy for a country, a small country, struggling to lift itself up. So we are coming from a civil war. As we are coming from a civil war, Ebola comes, and Ebola hits us. Mm-hmm. It was mismanaged. Thank God that President Bio and his team they actually decided to manage the COVID-19 in a way that it would blunted the impact, the severity of the impact. And so now we are again picking. So the people need to understand, say, yes, things are tough in Salon. But not to Salon one is suffer. The difference is that in countries where things are tough, there are jobs, mm-hmm. there are opportunities for the people. Right. And so this is what this SLPP administration is trying to do. Mm-hmm. Lay the basis that young people can get to work, young people can earn money, people can work, so that even if a liter of petrol goes to 20,000 leons, people can still afford to buy, just like here. Gasoline is being sold in some areas here for $6, $5 gallon. We can still buy because we have jobs. And that is the type of program that this government is building, so that companies can come into Salone and invest in Salone and employ our people. But they will not be able to come if we don't have cable electricity. We don't have reliable communications. We don't have good roads. This is the foundation that this Maada Bio administration is laying for the country. And in the long run, Sierra Leoneans will come back and say, Maada Bio was smart in thinking way ahead. But we just get for being small. And I make with it say, give Maada Bio some more time to do all the programs that he has started to do already.
So yeah, so AKV, another thing is, which we don't see so much lawlessness in the country recently. You know, some of them lawlessness that we see then the perpetrator against the police force, we see then the manifestant towards the government officials. What in your own estimation, what do you think is responsible for this rise in lawlessness in Sierra Leone?
One of the most important things in a pluralistic society like ours is the rule of law. No country exists without a rule of law. And so that rule of law, the responsibility for ensuring that rule of law is both a citizen's responsibility and the responsibility of those who uphold it, who should be expected to enforce the law. So, for example, the national police, the Sierra Leone police, have come under criticism sometimes for their heavy-handedness, sometimes for the things they do or things that they don't do. And this is all fair criticism. But we have a society where the rule of law is not ingrained in the minds of our people. People think that they can do things free as they want. People think they are free to do things without recognizing that where their freedom ends is where the next person's freedom begins. This is the democratic society. You have a freedom to do what you want to do, but your freedom ends where the next person's freedom begins. And it is our responsibility as citizens to respect the law to begin with, and to challenge the law when we feel that the law has transgressed us. When I feel that the police violated my rights, I will go to court and sue the police. And I've told people, let us test our democratic institutions to see whether they are really working. So, for example, I'll bring the LAJ case. They said the police said LAJ wanted to use his dreadlocks to commit suicide. So they shaved him. According to them, it was part of their standard operating procedures, SOP at the Benghazi cell. If that is the case, and LAJ and his lawyers feel that LAJ's rights were violated by the police, sue the police. Take the police to court and let the system be tested and see whether there are judges in the country, whether there are courts in this country that will see the truth, blind justice, and maybe they could rule in favor of LAJ and throw his case out of court. So that is what we need to do as citizens. So I cannot defend the police because the police is supposed to be a neutral institution of government. The police is not a tool of the presidency to go after its opponents. It is not a tool of the ruling government, the ruling party, to go after opposition members. That's not what the police is there for. The police is supposed to stand right in the middle so that at the end of the day, everybody can run to the police because to the police, they know they are safe. With the police, they know they are safe. That being said, as citizens of the country, we have responsibility to obey the laws of the country. Even if we don't like those laws, we must obey those laws. And if we think those laws transgress our rights, we must challenge those laws in competent courts of jurisdiction. That's the only thing we can do. But you cannot violate the law because you don't like the law.
Right. And you know, when I see that the police, I see where LAJ, you know, because they use in situation as an example now, where I see them, it is inside motocar, it is pointing hand at the police, it talks to Nami, they talk to, then the way we grab inside in chair as almost the one for jump from a car and jump on that policeman. And then the mammy calls maybe they come up from in passengers inside the motocar at mandate people them, all of that. Where down they don't happen, the police don't arrest them now. we still see Sierra Leoneans they will come out for defend LAJ and Imandem. So meaning that to me, I be really feel say the people that not understand Wusai the your democratic rights stop, just like how you don't say, and Wusai the next one in begin, you know, and then even the way the journalists them cover the story, then completely disregard the victim, when at the guy will be the cell at that police petrol station, where them punch and in face all swell up. So when you look at all of these activities, the behavior of LAJ, the behavior of the passengers, them, the way the population reacted, the way the journalists reported on the case, what do you think about all of that?
One of the saddest things that came out of the LAJ issue was the trivialization of the issue and the tribalization of the issue. LAJ is a Sierra Leonean citizen. If there was a probable cause that LAJ violated the rights of another citizen, LAJ should be prosecuted, regardless whether Nafulaman or Amendeman. It don't matter. You see? But people, and some very educated people, thought it was tribal. This Mende police, you know, IG, they do this because this Bobola Fulaman. No. And this is what we are supposed to really remove ourselves from as a country. This idea that, you know, Minatim the man, the other person a Mende man, the other person a Limba man, and so when something happens to one Mende man, it don't happen to all Mende people. No. When it happens to one Timini man, then all Timini people, you know, go behind that person. No. If a Mende man does wrong, let the law deal with him. Even if he's my own brother, let the law deal with him. If a Fulaman goes wrong, let the law deal with him. That's exactly what we're supposed to be seeing as a country. But where somebody feels that the rights of a citizen have been violated, that citizen and his family or his lawyers should seek redress in a court of law, not to take the law into their hands. I mean, I can mention LAJ's behavior, what he did in the United States, how he insulted. As a matter of fact, LAJ's conduct towards Asma James from, I think, Radio Democracy, the way he insulted Asma James, the invectives he heard at Asma James, that is in a major report with the International Committee of Journalists. It's in that report. I just read it last night, actually. They cited that as something, as a harassment of journalists, a public harassment of a journalist. So we know how LAJ has been a vagrant, has been a deviant of the law. So all we need to do is to actually just take him with the law, take him by the law, make sure his rights are protected, but also make sure that the rights of his victims are protected. And by law, that the right of the society, the country, Sierra Leone, is protected. Because LAJ is just one person against 8 million Sierra Leoneans.
Well, you know, AKB, a lot of people that we don't even they accuse even the justice system that the country for maybe be part of the problem. For say like if somebody get case in a court, it takes forever for men to talk that case, and then even the right way for able for judge cases them, they say you know they happen in the country. And so you think, say, the judicial system, because you don't make a lot of reference to the judicial system, but only when the judicial system is doing its job honestly, with neutrality, with all type of honesty and integrity. So you think, say, the justice system, they do what they're supposed to do the right way, or they need an overhaul?
Well, I think, say, you know, the overhaul they go on right now. I think this new Chief Justice, is it Babatunde or somebody? This new Chief Justice actually has an insight into how the justice system needs to be reformed. And that includes the police.
Right.
That includes the Sierra Leone police. So there should be a top-down, bottom approach in reforming the justice system, not just the courts. Because the justice system begins with the police.
Right.
The courts don't just accept anything except this is a civil case. But when it comes to criminal matters, they originate with the police. And so from the police to the court systems, the entire jurisprudence needs to be reformed. And that reform is going on right now. And I personally, I think I'm impressed with the new Chief Justice, with the work she's doing, but much more needs to be done. Remember, what is happening in Sierra Leone did not happen 4 years ago when Maada Bio became president. No, most people don't want to realize this. Maada Bio did not start what is happening in Sierra Leone. Maada Bio inherited more than 60 years of a decadent system. And just like Maada Bio said, the president said, if you fight corruption, corruption will fight back.
Yes.
And so the system is fighting back to maintain and keep those entrenched systems that have kept our country back.
All right.
It is a fight that this SLPP government is up to. Because at the end of the day, for us to be where we want to be as a country, 15, 20, 30 years from now,
okay,
we have to do the hard fight. So
AKV, we anticipate, say, the presidential and parliamentary elections, they take place in 2023, when next year. You imagine if the APC go take over the reins of governance again at the country this time around?
My answer to that question is, I don't think so. But politics is anything goes. But at the end of the day, we want to be in position to educate our people, to tell our people the differences between APC and SLPP, and to tell our people what this government has done, this SLPP leadership under President Bio has done in the last 4 years, compared to 11 years under APC. Compare that when President Kabal left office, he passed on a huge budget surplus to President Koroma to start with. President Koroma and the APC squandered that budget surplus and took our country to near bankruptcy. Now, 4 years ago, President Julius Maada Bio and the SLPP took over that near bankrupt country, a country where the international financial institutions did not have any confidence in us anymore because of what 11 years of President Koroma and the APC did. A country where the people had lost hope because the leadership of the country did not seem to care really about that. The negligence of Ebola that cost up to 4,000 lives, with additional several hundred dying from the mudslide at the time President Koroma was sitting somewhere. And the massive, President Koroma came to office as an insurance person. He is noted as one of the richest ex-presidents in Africa, anywhere in Africa. There are some estimates that he's worth over $600 million. Some people put it at over $1 billion. That's 11 years. 11 years in leadership. There is no business, insurance business especially, he could have done in Sierra Leone to get into that level of wealth. And so the choice is clear. In 4 years' time, Maada Bio has started to lay the foundation for the next Sierra Leone economy by investing heavily in energy, electricity, by investing in water resources, and most importantly, by investing in education, educating young girls especially, wiping out the death penalty, making sure that girls are no longer removed from school because they are pregnant, making sure that the roads across the country are passable, that goods can move from one end of the country to another end of the country within a day, whether it's rainy season or dry season. These are the developments that are taking place that the people are not seeing because the bag of rice is still expensive. Because the bag of sugar is still expensive. Because the daily bread and butter issues are still there. That is why the people of Sierra Leone are not seeing the developments that this present government is doing. But in the long run, these things will happen because it is the foundation of all of that, the bread and butter issues that this government is bringing into focus. And so at the end of the day, we have to tell our people, we have to sensitize our people to understand what this government has done and to make a choice, to make an informed choice. Do they want to go back to a government that was responsible for 4,000 lives under Ebola? Do they want to go back to a government that nearly bankrupted our country and enriched themselves? Do they want to stay with a government that is trying as much as possible to bring in needed resources? Let me tell you something. The mining company, for example, the mining companies. Sierra Leone did not get penny from the mining companies. The concession agreements of those mining companies, most of the money that's supposed to come to the government went into private pockets. For the first time in the mineral history of our country, mining companies are now paying money to the Sierra Leone government because Sierra Leone government now has a stake in the mining companies. Is 3% enough for me? No, 3% is not enough for me. But that's a good beginning. I would rather us have 30, 35%. But 3% is a good beginning. That we are now seeing a responsible government that is telling foreign investors, you cannot just extract our resources and take them away. We also want to have a share in how much you sell them abroad. Eventually, we are hoping that with electricity, stable electricity, good communication systems, good roads, factories can come in so we can begin to add value to our mineral resources. And I think this is where President Bio is going.
Okay. And so, yeah, definitely. So according to you, the people of Sierra Leone, they are aware for say progress don't take place. But because of the fundamental bread and butter issues have not been addressed, so the people then they find it difficult for acknowledge the other development programs that will don't take place in the country. So the bread and butter issue is very, very important as well. But me no say that's not going to be a reason why the Sierra Leonean people go use that as a reason why then they vote, because they see progress they happen in the country. So AKB, coming to the end of this conversation, what are your message to Sierra Leoneans, especially you people in Kailahun?
Well, for Kailahun people, let me start with Kailahun. Kailahun Fogo here, Raw Fogo here, Kailahun Code Barry. It's the fact that we are situated right near we are the only district, Kailahun district, that is located from the free port of Monrovia to Kwendu. It's about 255 miles. It is much shorter to take goods from the free port of Monrovia to Kwendu than to take goods from Wataki to Kwendu. That was the reason why Kwendu used to flourish, because much of the goods came from free port of Monrovia into Kwendu. Strategically, Kailahun is situated just across the Makona River from Guinea. People in southern Guinea would rather come to Kailahun because it's short for them than to travel hundreds of miles into Conakry for whatever goods or services they may need. From Kailahun to Danane, that is the border town between Liberia and Ivory Coast. It's much shorter also. So if you look at the proximity of Kailahun to 3 ECOWAS countries, Kailahun is an economic hub for Sierra Leone. And so what I want to tell Kailahun people, go here, I'm gonna go here and that here. So right now I'm telling Kailahun people to have a unity of purpose. Let Kailahun people unite, and I'm sure they are doing that right now with the Kailahun Descendants Association, KAIDA. They are doing that right now. Let Kailahun be united to make sure that the benefits of what is in Kailahun will come to our people in a way that will benefit them and move the district forward. But beyond Kailahun is a small group, it's a small section of Sierra Leone. The message I have for Sierra Leoneans is that when you go to bed tonight, when you listen to this broadcast, I want you to think about this. Your foremost belonging is to Sierra Leone. You are a Sierra Leonean citizen. You are a Sierra Leonean citizen even before you are Mendeman, even before you are Timiniman. You are a Sierra Leonean citizen before you are Creole. You should remember that. And that this country that is called Sierra Leone is only one country that we have. That's the only country that you can come to. So at the end of the day, we should always, as citizens of our country, put the country first. Our political parties are there. But when our political parties are not doing well by our country, we should say, we should talk. Like, for example, I'm saying the SLPP is not a perfect organization. Are we better off than the APC? Yes, we are. Because we build institutions that push our country forward. However, can we do better? Yes, we can do better. Why? Because at the end of the day, our country comes first, not our parties, not our tribes. Because just remember, when the war came in 1991, it did not ask whether you are Mende man or Timlima. It didn't ask whether you're a Creole woman or you are a Limba man. It didn't ask. The war was, the consequences of that war were indiscriminate across all tribes, all regions, all towns, all villages. We should ever, never forget that we owe to our country our allegiance, that we owe to our country our unflinching support. Why we support our leaders, at the same time, we should also call them to task when we feel that they're not doing the right thing by our country. So by closing, I'll say this, in the 2023 elections, Sierra Leoneans, put your thinking caps on. Forget about the hype, forget about the propaganda, and forget about what you're hearing in social media. Think about the country. Which party actually comes to power and creates the institutional capacity to move the country forward? And which party comes to power and damages those institutional capacities that the previous party built? Think about it. As a citizen of your country, it is important. It is your responsibility to vote wisely and to make sure that the developments that we have started this past 4 years will continue, not just for you, but for your children and their children.
Thank you very much, Brother Ansumana Kakpindi Vandi, AKV. We appreciate you. We thank you for this. And of course, at any time we will need you, we will call you for kind of Sherix and able to share your knowledge with we. We really appreciate everything where you don't talk today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.